before you date. This is something that most people are not going to talk to you about. They're going to tell you about dating, they're going to tell you about what to look for as far as red flags and look for what profile to write. They're going to talk about all of those things. And I'm going to talk about some of those things right now. But first thing first, before you date, before you go out there and have that cup of coffee, before you download any apps, we need to stop. We need to stop and take a deeper look at what we want. And we need to have this difficult conversation with you. And not about you, because at this stage in your life, dating is not about finding someone. It's not about losing yourself again. And many women don't realize this. You can be strong, you can be accomplished, you can have life in its fullness, and you are already there because you have lived 60, 70, and 80 years. But guess what? There is something called being emotionally ready to date. And that part of it is not talked about. You just jump into this dating pool and you just start ripping and running and you start looking and swiping to the left and you swiping to the right and you going out on these dates with people that are, in most cases, your age, okay? And they're not emotionally ready either. So let's talk about how do I get emotionally ready in a real way? Not that surface stuff, not that I feel fine version. I'm talking about the kind of readiness that asks some really deep questions. Who am I now at my age? What does this person look like? What have I been carrying? And that is going to take some time. And what am I still healing from? We're going to talk about that deeply. And many of these questions that I just asked, who am I now? What have I been carrying? We call that baggage. And where and am I healed? And maybe they healed over the last relation, or maybe healed over the loss of a significant others. Because after a loss or after a long relationship, you don't just move forward on a spin of a dime. That takes time. You carry a piece of your life with, you carry a piece of their life with you, okay? And something else. These pieces are heavy and they will wear you down mentally. Let's talk about that in a world of now of self-esteem. So now we're going to sort of dig a little different, deeper. We hear this all the time. Just love yourself. Of course, we think that's easy, but that's difficult. That sounds good, but what does that actually mean at 60 and 70 and 80, like myself? Self-love is not taking bubble baths. It is not getting that positive affirmation that you probably don't believe in, or pretending that you're okay when you're actually not. Self-love at this stage look like being honest about where you are and how you are broken and what do you feel like. Acknowledging where your confidence might be a little short, where you are deciding you're still worth that love. And guess what? All of that comes internally. And let's talk about what I even struggle with at some point in my life. It's your self-esteem. That's not what you say in public because you don't talk about that. It's what you believe about yourself, what you think you are worthy of. And I'm going to tell you, that takes a lot of work. And many times you do it in private. You don't want anybody to know. You stand in front of the mirror. You look at yourself. You see aging. You see all of that going on. And you see the weight gain after menopause. You see the aches and the pain. And it all plays on your self-esteem. So let me introduce something that we don't talk about enough either. And emotional readiness development. And yes, that's what I want to talk to you about. And that's when you stop growing. Maybe when you were hurt, maybe when you were abandoned, maybe when you lost someone that you love. And without it, we just take a step back. You still don't respond from that place that's deep inside of you. So now you're 65 older, but a part of you are still seeking validation, avoiding rejections, afraid to speak up. And that's not weak and that's not broken. That's unprocessed life that you really need to kind of stand back and look at it. Because you can't make space for someone else. You have to make space for yourself first. And that means asking, where in my life have I been? Have I been overgiving, over compromising, overlooking my needs? And we do, as best, especially Black women. We put everybody first. We put the kids first. We put the grandkids first. We put the household duties first. We put our careers first. We put, and I can go on and on of all the other things that we put first. Because the truth here is that we don't put ourselves first. If your life is already full of emotional chaos and crisis, there is no room for a healthy relationship. You can get in it, but it won't last. And especially if that person you're in it with is unhealthy too, there is no room at all. And I want you to hear this clearly. You do not invite someone into your life until you create space of worth. Your worth. So this part is going to be hard, but it's necessary. Sometimes preparing to date means shedding pieces of yourself. Not the good part, but the part that shapes us on how to survive, the disappointments, and the emotional protection. You may have to learn a few things. How to, and you might have to shed some of these things. Being guarded. Yes, I'm not saying don't be guarded because going out here, thinking that you want to date. Yes, you're going to have to be guarded, and we're going to talk about how to prepare yourself to be guarded, right? So those are going to be some of the things that's on key. Those things that you really need to know how to do, okay? And how to stay in self-control. But not to say that you got to always be in control. As females, we think we gotta control everything. Okay, you do not have to control everything. You have to learn how to trust, which is not easy. Okay, you're gonna have to relinquish some of those controls. Okay, so those are things that you're gonna work on before you go on a date. But they can also block some of your connections. So you might want to know, well, why am I not meeting anybody? Because you got that control issue. You got to always be in control. But let me ask you something. And are you trying to date while still wearing that armor? Because that armor is going to be heavy on you. Because if you are, you might meet somebody that's wearing armor too. But they will never meet you because there's too much armor. You walk around sometimes with this look on your face. Don't talk to me. I'm not in the mood today. I don't want to hear that. Take a step back. You're doing all of those things to protect yourself. And I get it. I am with you. I am this brown, black woman that went through all of those same things too. And that's why I can talk to you about these things. I'm not a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old telling you how to date. I'm saying that you wear those armors, you carry that baggage. Life put baggage on you. Put bricks in that book bag that you got on that wears those shoulders down, that doesn't allow you to stand tall. Because how are you going to take them out? Okay? So we got to learn how to deal with those. But what we most of all, and I'm going to say this again, understand what self-care, self-love, self-esteem is all about. So, but they will never meet you face to face as far as trying to go out into this world, okay? And here's the truth. You cannot build connection while holding and hiding behind all of these things. You will never make connection. So if you're going out there and you think you're going to jump into this dating arena and you're going to find the perfect person for you that's going to bring you happiness and so-called joy, nah. You're going to meet what you are from the inside. So work on that inside of you so that you can bring the person for you. It doesn't mean that you got to be naive. It doesn't mean that it is not there. It just means that you need to take time and work on you. Work deeply. And when I say take time, I'm talking about, who knows, maybe 6 months, maybe a year, maybe even longer. It doesn't mean that you are not capable of dating. Of course you're capable of dating. But you also have to protect your heart. And you don't want to bring a lot of drama and stress in the process of going out there and dating. So, what do you do and how do you do this? And after a loss, you hurt. Hurt people hurt. That's the truth of the nature. One of the biggest questions that I get all the time, where do I go to feel safe? And the answer is not in another person. Safety has to be rebuilt within yourself is called trusting yourself. That means trusting your judgment again, listening to your intuition, honoring your boundaries. Because when you feel safe within yourself, you don't need to rush into anything. So let me say something that may free you at this stage in your life. You are not here to become what somebody else wants you to be. You are here to be fully unapologetic yourself, your authentic self. And if you feel like you have to shrink, perform, or prove your worth, this is not the person that you want in your life, because that is not the right connection. Does not require you to disappear or to step behind or be subservient. That is not us anyway. You know, we have never carried that role. But you also need to do some self-assessment. And that is asking yourself, am I showing up as my true self?